Our goal today is to give you some tips you can use in your grammar class, virtual or face-to-face, to make your grammar lessons memorable and to make the grammar stick so that students are actually using the grammar to communicate. The examples we'll be showing are from Grammar in Context 7th edition, but they apply to any materials you are using or creating. We know that grammar is a tool to help communication. Learning grammar in and of itself is actually not that useful, unless you're a linguist, of course, and you want to understand the deep structure of a language. But no one is ever going to ask you how to conjugate a verb or what the past participle is of a verb. Grammar is useful for communication. It helps you read, write, listen, and speak. And that means that the best way to teach grammar is in meaningful contexts, something that students can relate to and hold on to so that students see how grammar is actually used, not grammar in disconnected sentences or in grammar paradigms. This isn't to suggest that there isn't a place for rules and drills, but for real acquisition, for the real stickiness to happen, we want to give students meaningful context to notice, learn, and practice within. So our first tip today is to use great content. And in this case, in Grammar and Context, it's really the readings and photos. The content for us at National Geographic Learning is the text, written or oral, photos, images, video, anything that we are giving the students as a vehicle to learn language. Our motto is bring the world to the classroom and the classroom to life. That means that our content always reflects the real world. We urge teachers to use content that informs, captivates, arouses curiosity, arouses inspiration, is inspiring and engaging. You know your students best, so always choose content that you think is relevant to their current needs and their future goals or their future lives. This slide shows you the array of content in Grammar and Context. From defining success with a story of Walt Disney to wedding ceremonies, unusual wedding ceremonies, to virtual communities, which are increasingly important these days, to jobs. As I said, photos are content for us. So I might ask you, do you know what this animal is? Do you know this photograph? And some of you may have seen this photograph, and some of you may actually know what the animal is. But in any event, I hope that I have at least captured your imagination and got you thinking or wondering. Your curiosity is piqued. Here she is in the context of a reading in Grammar and Context Level 2. Presumably now you are really interested because you want to know who owns the photo. This is a story of Christopher Slater, a wildlife photographer who was working in Indonesia to photograph black-crested macaques. One day he put his camera down and several of the monkeys or macaques started playing with the camera and actually started taking pictures of themselves. Slater ended up with over 100 monkey selfies. A little bit later, the photo appeared in Wikipedia. Slater contacted the company and complained, he was kind of outraged, saying it was his photo and they didn't have permission to publish it. Wikipedia claimed that the monkey owned the photo, but since an animal can't own a copyright, they argue that anyone could use the picture. Slater is actually still arguing this case. Here is an excerpt or a close-up of the text, and you can see that we have bold-faced certain grammar forms. One photo was taken by a female macaque. The image was published. His request was rejected. It was owned. A copyright cannot be held, etc. Obviously, we are focusing on the passive voice here. But our hope is that the student remembers things like the photo was taken by a female macaque. The photo is owned by the monkey. The photo can be downloaded by anyone, rather than be plus past participle. We want them to come away with something meaningful that actually helps them with grammar forms in meaning, with meaning. Here's another example, and you might think that this is a grammar point, the superlative with the happiest city in the US. But actually students learn that Boulder, Colorado is the happiest city in the US because, number one, people are healthy. They eat well, they exercise regularly. It's also, Boulder is a friendly community. People can walk safely, and there is hardly any crime. And finally, people can live there comfortably. They can live cheaply. We want here students to come away being able to talk about their own community and remember or use phrases like, I can walk safely, I can live comfortably, I can live cheaply, or I can't live cheaply. Again, the focus is on the meaning rather than the ly adverb form. And finally, here's one where students learn about signing an apartment lease. And the lease tells you what rules that protect the owner and rules that protect the tenant. So pets are not permitted. The renter has to pay 2 months security. Rules to protect the tenant. The owners must provide smoke detectors. The owners must provide electricity, I imagine, or maybe they don't. I can think of it, maybe the renter must pay the electric bill. But the owner may not raise the rent. By using the various modals in meaningful and real-world contexts, students begin to understand the nuances of meanings in modals. Because as you know, modals are easy to form. It's all these subtle meanings that are important for students to get a grip on. So recapping here, we want to use real-world content to engage, get the students interested, and to present and practice the grammar. The second tip is make photography part of every lesson. And here are 5 ideas, or 4 ideas from Paul Dummett and John Hughes from their book, Critical Thinking in ELT. The first is, when you have a photograph, have the students assess the moment. What's happening? What will happen next? What happened before? Is something most of us always do. Infer the photographer's intent. Ask the student, what was the photographer trying to capture? What emotion did the photographer communicate? Then have students write a caption for the photo. And finally, have students create a dialogue or monologue or thought bubbles. As you can see, these 4 activities go from assessing, which is kind of reflects the Bloom's hierarchy of thinking skills, from the lower order to a higher order, inferring, to a more creative writing a caption and creating a dialogue. So you can see the order of critical thinking activities from lower to higher order. Let's try it. So here's a photo. And we can start with the basic lower order, what's happening? Assess the moment. What's happening? What's going to happen next? What happened before? There's no wrong answer here, and that's the beauty of things like of using photos. The students could say anything they want. In fact, this is actually a photo taken at the beginning of the Ironman World Triathlon in Kona, Hawaii, and there are 2,300 athletes and 1 green turtle waiting for the start of the race. But you might ask students to give the photo a title. Which title best describes the image? Discuss in your group. No wrong answer. But it gives the students an opportunity to see what they feel, what they see in this photo. You can go further and If you want to try to elicit the grammar point, you could use sentence frames and have students complete sentences. The turtle is bigger than the swimmers. The turtle is more graceful than the swimmers. The swimmers are more or higher than the turtle, whatever. Here's another one. Use a photo here to try to elicit grammar. And in this case, you obviously ask what's happening, what happened before, what's going to happen next. Actually, that in this case, those are really great questions, because this is a planned. It's not that he's surprising her. This is all planned. So they must have planned it before, and presumably afterwards they're going to go and enjoy their wedding. But let's go to the next one. Infer the photographer's intent. What was the photographer trying to capture? What feeling? What emotion? Joy, happiness, thrill, inventiveness, and what were they feeling? Was he feeling fear? Was she feeling passion? You know, there's so many places you can go with just having students guess the underlying emotions behind a photo. You could also ask the students again to create a caption for this, using their grammar, maybe possessive pronouns, maybe he or she, her flowers, his hands, his hat, whatever. And here's the last one. You could start here. You might start with, what was the photographer's intent? I personally love this photo. To me, it evokes so much. It shows the power of volunteerism, the joy of working together, the spirit of community. This is Chef Jose Andres, who's from Spain, and he founded a nonprofit organization called World Central Kitchen. With his local chefs, he served more than 3.5 million meals to victims of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico in 2017. So you can ask them what feelings does it evoke in them? But you could also, if you wanted to, have them write a little dialogue. What is she saying? What is the gentleman in the yellow apron? He's rubbing his hands, and what is he saying to the master chef there? And what is the gentleman on the left shouting about? So an opportunity for them to create. So we have seen, to kind of recap, you want to use photography to make grammar memorable, to make it engaging, to make any lesson, in fact, engaging and memorable. And there are multiple ways to use photography in the classroom. To kind of sum up here, photography and learning, there are a lot of benefits. We've just seen you can use it in a grammar class, you can use it anywhere. But here are some other benefits. Photography draws learners in and engages them emotionally. Photography supports understanding of a text and makes it memorable. I mean, if you think about that story about Christopher Slater and the macaque, having that image was really helpful in understanding the story. It provokes debate. Who's swimming faster? Should the turtle be there even? Should the people be there? More to the point. It stimulates critical thinking by asking learners to examine detail or think about what is not shown. And finally, it lends itself to the practice of a specific grammar point. And now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Tracy.
All right, thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Bailey, and I work with Laura here at National Geographic Learning. And I'm going to go through several more tips with you today. So tip number 3, make grammar fun. We want to use communicative and interactive activities to help students improve their fluency and accuracy. By having exercises in class that involve competition and creativity, we can keep the classroom lively and give students the opportunity to take grammar points and make them their own, or put them into their personal lexicon. So here's an example that you can see it definitely takes on the competition, creativity as well. Here's an activity where you race your classmates, you work in pairs, you read the situation, You must write as many sentences as possible in 2 minutes using modals of probability and possibility. Which group wrote the most sentences would be the winner, but you could also use other rubrics such as accuracy. You could also use creative or style points as well for students to win. So the example here is you notice classmates cheating on a test. They must be crazy. They shouldn't be cheating. So here you go, students are getting an opportunity to have a model, but also it's getting them to work quickly. So having 2 minutes, so having them kind of work on that automaticity or real life situation, if we want to say it that way, when students are actually out communicating with people, they don't get a lot of time. They have to listen and respond quite quickly. So helping them work on that as well. Here's another situation from that same activity that I found works really well with students. It's engaging and it's something that's on their mind. So you've been offered 2 jobs. One pays a lot of money, the other pays very little, but it's something they really want to do. What would you do with your modals of probabilities and possibilities? You'd say, well, I must take the higher paying job because I have a family to take care of, or however they want to address the question. And again, it gets them the opportunity to write, speak, and listen to their classmates as they're sharing their information with each other. So different skill areas to reinforce the grammar. Here's another fun with grammar. It's a culminating activity of 6 subpoints the students practiced in various areas of this unit, and the unit here is on adjective clauses. And again, here it's getting them to, we're going to talk about in a bit, it's getting them to personalize, but it's also keeping the class lively, and it's giving students a chance to practice the grammar and again, put it in their own voice. And again, they get to write, speak, and listen. The final one here, and this is a fun one as well, especially if you're a movie fanatic or movie fan. It's a guessing game, and here this unit in the movies is a passive voice, and you ask students to write 4 to 5 sentences about a movie that comes from real life or from a book. And then the students write their sentences in passive voice. They say their statements to their classmates, and then students guess what they think the film is. So this one's fun. So tip number 4, personalize the content. We often hear from students that they want grammar to be less boring and more interactive, and personalization does just that. It allows students to draw from their own lives, their families, their communities, their experiences, and put the grammar to work for them. Because ultimately that's what we want to do with grammar. We want students to communicate, not just memorize the rules. So here in this activity about you, you'll find throughout the units in grammar and context, you're going to see, here's one about write some rules, customs, or expectations that you don't or didn't follow. And again, discuss these with a partner. Again, quite self-evident, the student gets to reflect on themselves. Again, take the time to think about it and practice, and then share it with their classmates. So again, that writing, listening, and speaking is being covered here as well. And also with personalization and content, we agree great content is good. We also have, I'm going to go back to the reading that Laura did earlier with who owns the photo. Here we have students, we want them to read the content. We want them to discover the grammar in the wild, as I like to call it, within a reading, like why am I learning passive voice? And here's some examples of why students would be learning this. But it's also taking it a step further and making sure not that they just comprehend, but they can express opinions is what they'll need academically about what they think about the reading. So here I like question 2, which side do you agree with and why? Do you agree with Wikipedia or do you agree with the photographer? And again, giving students that opportunity to practice language, communicate, and find what grammar is really for, which is communication and understanding. And finally, tip 5, use technology. Technology is very, very important for the classroom. It always has been, but these days we're finding that it's becoming more and more critical as oftentimes classes are going from in-person classrooms to online or virtual classrooms. So I'm going to walk through with you a few things that can help you in your classroom, ready to go and use to make your online class experience or in-person class experience more exciting, engaging, and memorable. The first technology that you can use is we have something called a classroom presentation tool. The classroom presentation tool is basically all the pages of the book are digitized, and within those pages there's some interactivity. The audio is embedded into the pages as well as the activities. So teachers can display the activities, have students do them, and then also show the answers. So with that said, I just won't talk the talk. I'm going to actually go and show you the classroom presentation tool. Okay. So everyone, I'm hoping you can see that. I know you can. This is the classroom presentation tool. And again, you're going to see all the units are here. So in book 2, you're going to see there are 14 units. Go back. I'm going to take my cursor down here. You're going to see there are a lot of tools you can use in the classroom presentation tool. There's a timer. We're not going to go over all the features of that today, but that's there for you to use in class. And then I'm going to go into a unit. So here I'm going to go back to Chef Andreas, Unit 7, and start here. And like Laura had talked about before, the power of photography and images is a useful tool for learning. And this is the same in the CPT. Anything that's an opener, a unit opener, you're going to go up to this little activity bar and push. And in the classroom presentation tool, we've added questions that you can use to spark conversation from these photographs. There's also a quote on every unit opener to get students to think about what the theme of the unit is going to be about, and also to spur discussion. And like I said, every page in the book is there, so we'll just do a little bit quick flip through. So reading on Ellis Island, again, exercises. And then here is another one, a reading on immigrants and business. And wherever you see here,
Immigrants, building businesses and communities.
you can see here, it plays the audio for the whole reading for you, so you can use that in your online classroom. I'm going to go here to a couple more. Here's an exercise where you do the activity. And again, you're going to see there's a lot of listening for the students to do. You can play this, and I like this one because it's basically
Before
a
you came
dictation.
to the U.S., were you living with your parents?
So again, in your online classrooms, you could have students do this in the chat. You could have these students do these in breakout rooms. And then after, when you want to feed back to the class, however you want to give feedback, you can also give the answers. You can give them one at a time, or you can show them all. Close that one. Just to give you another example, here's another activity where students fill in the blanks. And again, you can show the answers, you can show all the answers, or hide all the answers. So again, this is a great tool that you can use in your online class and in-person class to have everything at the fingertips, especially online. We want to make sure students are lockstep with us. We can't necessarily project our physical textbooks here, but here we can keep the students all on the same page. So I'm going to stop sharing this one. I'm going to share my 1 second. Okay, so that's the classroom presentation tool, and really with online learning, we're getting a lot of nice feedback. Teachers find this a very useful tool for them. 1 sec. We also have ebooks. These are student ebooks that students, again, it would be all the book digitized. Of course, it's an ebook. The audio is embedded. And over here, I'm going to kind of show you again, like in the classroom presentation tool, wherever you see this, the little pen and notepad, the students can also do activities in their ebook. Again, these aren't graded for them automatically. They're designed to be brought to your virtual or online classroom or in-person classroom and to be gone over with the teacher or group. And then finally, there is an online practice as well. So students, again, get more opportunities to practice the grammar that they're doing. They get to work on some personalization. There's some testing and retesting, so they can kind of stop and see how successful they are with learning whatever it is they're focusing on in the unit. And again, this is automatically graded, so the students get instant feedback. It's easy to use, very easy for you as an instructor to grade because it's been graded for you. And then also, with the online learning environments, now there is a grade book to the online practice where you can look and see how your students are doing. You can look at their test scores, how many times they've done it, but then most Most importantly, you can look at time on task. You can see how long actually students are taking to do the assignments you're giving them in My ELT, which is important when we're not face-to-face and not seeing students right in front of us. We oftentimes are wondering how long they are focusing on particular things. So in today's session, 5 tips. I hope these are some small things that you can take away. If there's 1 or 2 that you can use in your classroom next week, or if you're finished for the semester in the fall. You know, grammar, students find grammar important. I like grammar, teachers like grammar, but you know, we know our students want to communicate. We teach grammar in a meaningful context, something that students can relate to and hold on to, right? So we want to, of course, when we're teaching grammar, we want to teach it in a context. We don't want to be decontextualized. So they see the grammar as it's used, right? They see it, I like to say, in the grammar wild, in readings and things they're listening to and so forth. It's not just disconnected sentences and paradigms. Even though these are important, it's not the key for grammar. It's students being able to communicate in English. We want to give students meaningful context to notice, learn, and practice within, and make the grammar engaging and memorable. So thank you for your time today. If you'd like to learn more about grammar and context, you can see below there's the URL eltngl.com/GIC70 to learn more about the program. So thank you,